What's going on, everyone? My name is Dalton Brown. I am lead MLB handicapper here at SportsMap Elite. My Twitter is at Dalton J. Brown. I am posting picks there every day. Off to a pretty decent start this season. SportsMap Elite's bets. We are 19-12 on the year. I've got action on a lot of games today. I've got notes on every game on the board today. And I've got a pick from BC and Houston, our head man over at SportsMap Elite, on the Astros game today as well. So excited to dive right into it. We'll be going game by game in rotation order through the picks here today, starting with 9-5-1 Diamondbacks at Cubs. We will go through every game. White Sox Yankees is already in progress. I don't have a play on that one, but I'll share a couple notes just for the sake of doing so. Quick note before I get started. SportsMap Elite is really the best deal out there if you're looking to, pay for picks and pay for analysis from people who know what they're talking about and put a ton of work in. I can't promise you I'm always going to win, but I can promise you that I'm always going to, put the work in to win. So would love it if you came along for the ride, only $19.99 a month. But without further ado, I will go ahead and dive into it. First game on the docket, we've got 9-5-1 Diamondbacks at 9-5-2 Cubs. This game's coming up in about an hour. It's a 2:20 Eastern time start time. We've got Madison Bumgarner on the mound for the D-backs. He's 2-2 with a 2.29 ERA this season. For the Cubs, it'll be Justin Steele on the bump. He's 1-4 with a 4.50. Couple lefties pitching there. Diamondbacks are going to be an underdog on the road, plus 131. Cubs a minus 140 favorite. Over under 7.5. A little bit juice to the under. It's an interesting game. The Diamondbacks have come into Chicago and exercised their will the first couple of days. They've won the first two games of the series. But the Diamondbacks are a team where offensively it's hard to trust them typically. Take a look at Justin Steele pitching for the Cubs today. He did pitch well in his last start against Arizona, which came up, just about a week ago. 6 innings pitched, only 1 earned. Before then, he hadn't recorded a single out in the 6th inning all season. He scuffled most of April, but he's been a little bit better in May. His ERA is 2 runs higher at home so far this year. Scares me off of him a little bit in this spot. He typically starts to struggle his second time through an order. You look at his ERA as the game goes along. 3rd inning, ERA over 8. 4th inning, almost 7. 5th inning, back to almost 8. So, typically he's a guy that'll get you once through the order, and then you don't really know what you're going to get. Cubs bullpen has been very good behind him. They've been second best in baseball since May 1st at 2.53 on the ERA there. So not necessarily looking to fade the Cubs full game, but first 5, I do think the Diamondbacks are a pretty good look here as a plus 125 underdog. And a lot of why is Madison Bumgarner. Bumgarner has been really effective this season when he's not being ejected from games for being an idiot. And if you look at how he's done it, he's only allowed 3 or more runs once, and that was against the Dodgers, who do that to most teams. This is a guy who's a veteran. He's pitched on the road 1 million times in his career, and the Cubs are only around league average against left-handed pitching. To me, look, I get it. The Cubs a little bit better lineup overall, better bullpen, but first 5 innings, Arizona being an underdog of plus 125, I think that should be closer to a pick 'em. I'll gladly take the 25 cents of value there with the Diamondbacks in the first 5 innings. Moving on to the next game on the board, we're going to stay in the NL West here. We've got the Padres staying on the road and playing the Giants. They played a barn burner last night. They went 11 innings. Padres ended up winning the game 8-6. A lot of bullpen arms used in that one. 2 pitchers on the bump today who should do something about that. Joe Musgrove pitching for the Padres. He's 4-0 with a 2.20 this year. Carlos Rodon's been excellent for San Francisco. He's 4-2 with a 3.49 ERA. Padres, an underdog again on the road here, plus 134. Giants minus 149 favorites at Oracle Park. Low total here of 7. Juiced even more to the under, minus 125. I would not be surprised if this is going to move or has already moved to 6.5. These are 2 teams who typically pitch better than they hit, and today should be no exception to that. Musgrove has completed at least 6 innings in every start so far this season. He's been really excellent all year. He's allowed more than 2 earned runs only once. And what I think, one stat I think is really important with him, he's only allowed 6 walks in 45 innings of his work this year. So this is a guy where you know what you're going to get. He's not going to come out there and, miss on first pitch strikes. He's super consistent. Doesn't get hit around all that much. 0.93 whip on the season. Absolutely excellent. The Giants have hit righties pretty well this year. Gives me a little bit of pause in wanting to back Musgrove. But the Padres have as well against lefties. So, pretty similar stuff here from each pitcher. You look at Carlos Rodon, he was absolutely electric in April. Struggled a little bit in May, but a lot of that was just one terrible start his last time out against St. Louis. I don't make too much of that. Guys are every once in a while, guys are gonna get blown up. And San Francisco is pretty tough at home, and he's been really tough at home. One concern here, San Francisco's bullpen has really struggled. You look at them since May 1st, 5.97 ERA, that's second worst in the majors. And it does make me wonder if we're starting to see the Giants generally regress after their 107 win season last year that never made a whole lot of sense. I do think the Padres are probably the better team overall. And Musgrove is a guy that I like to back. If I had to play this game, I would absolutely take the Padres plus 134. I think that's a lot of value for them on a team that should be maybe even money here, maybe even favored. I'm just not quite willing to fade Rodon at home. There are games on the board that I like better, as we'll get to. So if you really want action here, I would take San Diego. I'm not playing it myself. Moving on to the next one. Once again, we're staying in the NL West, this time with the Dodgers in a very rare underdog spot going on the road against the Phillies. Dodgers are going to be a plus 112 underdog here. Phillies, small favorite, minus 122. Over under 9 runs. Dodgers are sending Mitch White to the mound. He's 1-0 with a 4.82 ERA, but he's probably not the story in this game for the Dodgers. It'll be mostly a bullpen game, and it's a bullpen that's fairly reliable. The Dodgers did this a lot last year, and they typically outperformed expectations in their bullpen games. Phillies, on the other hand, will send Aaron Nola to the mound. Nola is absolutely their ace. He's had a great season so far, but it's hard when you face a team twice in a week. And he just faced the Dodgers a week ago at Dodger Stadium. I think he's pitched well against them in his career, but this is a lineup that absolutely crushes right-handed pitching. And it's not a lineup that you want to face twice in a row, especially as a righty. So, you look at it from Philadelphia's perspective. Their bullpen had to pitch 6 innings last night after the Dodgers touched up Ranger Suarez. They pitched pretty well, but it's hard to imagine that Girardi wants to go to that bullpen terribly early. Dodgers are really good at working counts. They're going to make life tough on Nola. I wouldn't be surprised if he pitches reasonably well. But I just can't get to the Phillies as a favorite here. If the Dodgers are going to be an underdog, there needs to be a damn good reason why. And I think people underestimate how effective the Dodgers have been in the games where they've thrown a bullpen game so far. They've had the 6th best bullpen in baseball this season. Really just only had the one bad week 2 weeks ago. And the bullpen ERA is well under 3 in the 6-game win streak they've got going right now. So to me, this is a game where I can bet the best team in baseball on a 6-game win streak when they're playing well in a spot where they're facing a right-handed pitcher they just saw 6 days ago. I could understand the Dodgers being a small favorite, but I just can't get to them being an underdog. So I will be on the Dodgers plus 112 here on the road at the Phillies. Call me a homer. Fine. I think they're going to win the game. Next game on the board, we head to Miami. We've got the Braves, 9-5-7 on the betting board. They'll be throwing Kyle Wright against Eliezer Hernandez for the Marlins. Kyle Wright, 3-2 with a 2.79 ERA this year. Eliezer Hernandez, 2-3 with a 6.15 ERA this season. Braves, moderate favorite here on the road, minus 140. Marlins plus 130 here at home, over under 8. Kyle Wright's a guy that really burst onto the scene this year. He pitched really well in April, but he's come crashing down to earth a bit in May. Part of the reason for that, he's faced much tougher lineups so far in May. He's faced the Mets, he's faced the Red Sox, he's faced the Padres than he did in April. Back in April, we saw him face the Cubs, the Reds, the Marlins. He did pitch well against the Marlins in that first outing, 6 scoreless innings, but his road ERA has been a bit higher Hello, it appears we are back up. Let me just go ahead and tweet that out. All right, well, I will go ahead and jump right back in where I was. We were covering the Marlins-Braves game today from Atlanta. Marlins, as I said, are a plus 130 underdog. Braves are minus 140 on the road with Kyle Wright on the mound. We've got an over-under here of 8. Kyle Wright's a guy that has really come crashing back down to earth in May. He was excellent in April, 1.17 ERA that month, but in May so far, he's struggled, and I think a lot of it comes down to just the competition he's been facing. You look at his May so far; he's had to play the Mets, the Red Sox, the Padres. That's just not easy, And you compare that to the first part of the season when he faced the Cubs. He saw the Marlins, he saw the Reds, especially when the Reds were down the way they were. But his expected ERA for the season, 3.19, tells us that the breakout we've seen from him is probably legit and probably just who he is now. His ERA on the road has been significantly higher than at home, which is a little bit concerning here. Slows me down a little bit off wanting to take the Braves today. They'll be opposed by Eliezer Hernandez for the Marlins, who he's pitched well in his career against Atlanta, an ERA of just 3.22 and 36 innings of work. It's an opponent he's very familiar with this year. But he's allowed 4 more runs in 5 of his last 7 starts. He's really struggled, but he has dealt with some bad defense behind him. The Braves hit him pretty good back on the 23rd of April. And a lot of the league's really done that to him so far. I don't think what he's done recently bodes well. He's allowed 10 home runs in his last 7 starts. Atlanta is starting to hit the ball a little bit better. And his expected ERA for the season, 4.51, tells us that he's just not that good. I think the Braves here minus 140 probably makes sense. I think that line is probably about right. So I don't really see value here. If you wanted to make a wager on the game, maybe Braves in the first 5 on the run line. But I'm probably just going to stay away from it here. Kyle Wright's numbers on the road are just not good enough for me to want to back anybody. Moving on to the next game. 959 St. Louis Cardinals heading on the road to take on the Pittsburgh Pirates, 960. Pirates here are going to be an underdog, as they normally are, plus 127. Cardinals laying minus 137 on the road. We've got an over-under here of 8.5. This game's a 6:35 Eastern time first pitch. I've got a pretty heavy angle here. I am all over the Cardinals on the money line. I got them at minus 133, and I would play them probably up to about minus 140 or minus 145. I'm also playing their team total over 4.5 here in this spot. It's mostly a fade of Jose Quintana. Jose Quintana for Pittsburgh he's 1-1 on the season with a 2.19 ERA. At surface level, that's really impressive, but I'm just not buying into it. He had a good start against the Dodgers where he got lucky on a lot of hard contact and threw 5 shutout innings. He pitched well against the Reds his last time out, but he's really getting lucky with the contact he's allowing. His BABIP on the season, batting average on balls in play, is 70 points lower than it is for his career. That tells me that balls are just being hit at guys. His expected ERA per Baseball Savant is all the way up at 4.57. This is a guy who probably is a below average overall starter and has been that most of his career. That just is not what we've seen so far this year. And he's running into a bit of a buzzsaw today. The Cardinals are number 1 in baseball on the season against left-handed pitching. They've put up an insane 145 WRC plus in that split. They absolutely crush lefties, and I think they're probably going to crush Quintana today. Cardinals are sending a guy making his major league debut out there, Matthew Liberatore. He is their top pitching prospect. This is a guy who was the key piece sent back to St. Louis in the trade that sent Randy Arozarena to the Rays. Really talented young pitcher. He's looked pretty good in AAA so far this year, 3-3 with an ERA under 4. 5 homers in 40 innings, but 46 strikeouts and 12 walks. That's pretty convincing. It's a good soft landing spot for him. Pittsburgh's 23rd against lefties in WRC plus. I think it's a good spot for him to get things going. So I like St. Louis on the money line. I think we're getting the better team pretty cheap here against a pitcher that they should crush. And St. Louis's team total over 4.5. Definitely something I'll be looking at there. On to the next one here. We've got 9-6-1 Nationals heading on the road to play the Milwaukee Brewers. Brewers scored a touchdown on them yesterday, beat them 7-0. Nationals are quickly approaching the Reds for the worst team in baseball, and they're throwing one of the worst starters in baseball today in Patrick Corbin. He's 0-6 with a 6.28 ERA this season. He'll be opposed by Brandon Woodruff, 4-2 with a fairly high 5.35 ERA on the year. Brewers at home here, a significant favorite, -220. Nationals on the road, +200. Big-time underdogs, over-under 7.5. As you can see, I'm wearing the Brewers hat today. I am all over Milwaukee. I'm laying the 1.5 runs here at minus. I got it even money. It's now -110. We talked about how Jose Quintana for the Pirates is due for negative regression. The exact opposite can be said about Brandon Woodruff for the Brewers. He's got a 5.35 ERA this year, but his expected ERA per Baseball Savant is just 3.64. He's been exceptionally unlucky on batted balls. Washington is probably the worst team in the league. They're right there with Baltimore. They're right there with Cincinnati. They just don't hit. And I really don't think they're in a good spot here. Just adding to the case with Woodruff, he's allowed a 306 batting average on balls in play. That's just not going to continue. That's what Washington's done offensively, 306 batting average on balls in play. And that still only has them right below average against righties on the year. So, to me, I think Washington's due for negative regression. Woodruff is due for positive regression. Milwaukee has been excellent at home. They've been one of the best offenses in the league when they're playing at now American Family Field, formerly Miller Park. And just taking a look at Patrick Corbin really quickly here, his expected ERA is also over 6. He's the rare case of a guy who has actually been as bad as his numbers suggest. And Milwaukee, it's a spot where they should have a field day with him. I think he'll probably walk a few batters. They'll hit him pretty good. I like Milwaukee laying the 1.5. I tweeted that pick out last night. I still like it quite a bit today. Diving into the next game here on the board, we've got Game 2 popping up first here. That's the Mets at the Rockies. That's at 8:40 Eastern time tonight. I don't have a whole lot here. It's going to be Trevor Williams against Austin Gomber. Mets are a moderate favorite, -125, over under 10. If that total looks low for Coors Field, it is, but that's because we're looking at temperatures in the high 20s. Denver has seen about 10 inches of snow in the last 24 hours. That's why they didn't play last night. I don't know what we're going to get from these two starting pitchers in the snow. I think the bullpens, we have no clue what they're going to look like after Game 1. It's kind of a wait-and-see game for me. I'm tempted to play the Mets as a small favorite, but I'll tweet that out later if I do. In the meantime, I do have a play on Game 1, which we'll get to in a little while here. Before we do that, we've got the White Sox and the Yankees, 9-6-5 White Sox on the road in New York. Dallas Keuchel on the mound for Chicago, 2-3 with a 5.54 ERA. Nasty Nestor Cortez on the mound for the Yankees, 2-1 with a 1.35 ERA. Yankees massive favorites here, -205. White Sox catching +185 on the road, over under 9.5. Yankees, kind of a -115 or so favorite on the run line, -115. My first instinct here is to take the Yankees, mostly because that was my exact instinct the last time they faced Dallas Keuchel about a week ago. In that game, I did have the Yankees on a team total over 4.5, and lo and behold, Keuchel came out and shut them down for 5 innings. I don't know how he did it. I don't think Keuchel is very good at this point. He's got a whip of almost 2 on the season, and the Yankees have a bunch of righties who kill left-handed pitching, especially at home in a spot like today. I wanted to take Yankees team total over 4.5 again today, but it is out there at 5.5, so I have to stay away. I don't want to lay minus 205 at the Yankees. This is a White Sox lineup that hits left-handed pitching well. Nestor Cortez he pitched really well against them a week ago. He threw 8 innings, only allowed a run. But you're letting the White Sox, who are basically all right-handed, see the same lefty twice in a week. That's something that I could see kind of turning south on Nestor in a hurry here. But I do want to take a second to acknowledge how excellent he's been. He's been top 10% of the league in expected WOBA, expected ERA, expected batting average, expected slugging against, and K percentage. This is a guy, generally speaking, who you're going to want to be playing on. Just not quite today. The Yankees definitely interest me here, but I don't know. I don't like how they looked against Keuchel last time, and Nestor Cortez has been really good, but maybe some negative regression. I don't know. Can't quite get there. Moving on to the next one. 9-6-7 Seattle Mariners continuing their series on the East Coast against the Boston Red Sox. Mariners going to send Chris Flexen to the mound. He is 1-6 with a 4.35 ERA on the season. Red Sox sending Garrett Whitlock out there, 1-1 with a 2.43 ERA. Red Sox medium favorite here, minus 152. Mariners catching plus 137 on the road here. Got an over-under of 9.5, slightly juiced to the under. Early on in the season, we talked a bit about how Chris Flexen was due for some regression. He had really good numbers early on in the season. And sure enough, here it is. He's 0-3 with a 5.87 in May. He's allowed 5 homers in just 15 innings, 9 earned runs in his last 10 innings of work. This is a guy who the league has started to figure out, and it makes sense. His expected ERA is 5.13 on Baseball Savant. You could make an argument that there's still more regression to come. Honestly, I think that happens today. Boston's 7-3 in their last 10, and over that span, they have a 156 WRC plus against righties. That is by far best in the league. This is a team that's absolutely hitting. They're hitting the crap out of the baseball right now. They scored 19 runs in the last 2 days. And if Flexen doesn't last long, that Mariners bullpen comes back in. Mariners bullpen has been getting absolutely hit around recently. This is a unit that has allowed 10 runs on just 7 innings in this series alone. They've been the worst bullpen in baseball since May 1st with an ERA over 6. It's just a spot where I think Boston comes out there and scores a bunch of runs. I'm on Boston's team total over 4.5. I think Whitlock should pitch pretty well for the Red Sox. He's got an expected ERA of the season on 2.17. That's elite. That being said, we haven't seen him pitch deep into games yet as a starter. I'm still kind of in wait and see mode there, but certainly signs point to him being pretty good. Seattle does have a pretty good offense against right-handed pitching. They sit right around 10th in the league in that split. They are 6-13 since May 2nd. So, I think fading Seattle right now is a pretty good look, but I'm just going to keep it simple and play Boston to score over 4.5 runs. I think they're going to pepper the monster. It's a hot day in Boston today. So, I think Chris Flexen is in a bit of trouble. I'll be on Boston over 4.5. Moving on to the next game on the board, 9-6-9 Detroit Tigers. They're in Cleveland playing the Guardians this weekend. They'll be facing Shane Bieber, 1-2 with a 3.72 ERA for the Guardians today. Alex Fado on the mound for the Tigers, 0-1 with a 2.87 ERA on the year. Tigers underdogs plus 160 on the road. Guardians are minus 180. Over-under of 8 runs here. I'm not seeing any value in the line. I'll walk through some notes on the game. Alex Fado, he's been pretty steady. He's made 3 major league starts so far. He's gone at least 5 innings in all 3. He's allowed 2 or fewer runs in all 3. Cannot ask for more than that. I will say his expected ERA is closer to 4.5. So this is probably a guy with some negative regression coming. Contact against him has been really hard so far this year. And Cleveland's lineup, they're really low expectations for that lineup, but they've hit righties pretty well. They're 105 WRC plus. That's above average in May against right-handed pitching. They're a decent team at home. So, I think Bieber being a favorite here makes sense. This is a guy who has been Cy Young caliber at times in his career, and his numbers against the Tigers are a big reason why. He's pitched 55 innings against them to only a 2.28 ERA, 6-2 record. Detroit is one of the worst teams I've ever seen against right-handed pitching. Their WRC plus of 60 is absolutely putrid since May 1st. They can't hit. They especially can't hit righties. Bieber should have his way. I think first 5 innings on the run line, maybe I look at Cleveland, laying the half run at -130, but Cleveland's a huge favorite here, and they should be. And I'm just not – look, the Guardians are okay, but I'm very rarely going to be behind them when they're this big of a favorite against anyone. So if you want to play it, look for a way to play the Guardians, look for a way to play the Tigers under their team total maybe, but not for me. Next game on the board, 9-7-1 Tampa Bay Rays heading on the road to play 9-7-2 Baltimore Orioles. Jeffrey Springs will get the ball for the Rays. He's 1-1 with a 1.66 this season. He'll be taking on Kyle Bradish for Baltimore, 1-2 with a 5.06 ERA. Rays are a fairly small favorite here, -128 on the road. Baltimore +118 at home. This is a spot where Baltimore on this homestand has been kind of a thorn in my side. I've faded them a couple times, and they've walked me off 2 nights in a row now in extra innings. Teams have been blowing leads against them. They've been clutch late in games. I'm going to avoid all that today. I'm taking Tampa Bay in the first 5 innings, and mostly because Jeffrey Springs has been phenomenal. Springs' workload has shown him being built up. He's going to basically be a 5-and-dive pitcher, which is all Tampa really wants their starters to be. They want somebody who's going to come in, dominate twice through a lineup, and that's what he's done. This is a guy with 20 strikeouts and 3 walks and 21.2 innings this season. He threw 4 2/3 scoreless against Toronto his last time out. That's a really good lineup. He's 95th percentile expected ERA at 2.15, and Baltimore is 25th against left-handed pitching this year. They've really struggled in that split. I see a bunch of different reasons to like the Rays to keep Baltimore scoring subdued in the first 5 innings. I'd be surprised if Baltimore had more than a run at the end of 5. Kyle Bradish for Baltimore, he's been pretty good. This is his 5th major league start. He has faced really tough lineups so far. Opponents are hitting .316 against him in May. I have some concerns about him here. Tampa's got a pretty decent lineup. I will say for Bradish, his StatCast numbers suggest he's been a little bit unlucky. But still, I think a run, 2 runs, 3 runs is all Tampa would need here. And getting them at -125 on the first 5 money line, I think that's cheap. You've got a big gap in quality of teams here, and Jeffrey Springs has been dominant. Keeping it simple, taking Tampa in the first 5. Moving on to the next one, we've got my partner BC. He's the head here at SportsMap Elite. This is his best bet of the day. He's going to be on the Astros on the run line. Astros are playing at home against the Rangers, 9-7-3 Texas at 9-7-4 Houston. Rangers sending John Gray to the mound. He's 1-1 with a 5.73 ERA. Verlander 5-1 with a dominant 1.83 so far this year. Houston is an astronomical favorite here, -250. Texas catching +225 on the road. Over under 7.5. A little bit juice to the under. Houston in that run line spot -1.5. I'm showing -115 now. I know BC likes it up to -120. He sent me a good handicap as to why. I'll go ahead and read through that and then take you guys right back into the notes on the game. Verlander's owned the Rangers is really what it comes down to for him. In his career, the team has a collective average of 203 against him, and this iteration of the Rangers is only hitting 218 against him. Obviously Verlander's been dominant all season. You look at John Gray. This is a bet that the Rangers were making on him. That he would leave Colorado and figure it out, not having to pitch at Coors Field as much. He just hasn't. He's given up 3 or 4. He's given up 3 or more earned runs in 4 of his 5 starts so far this season. And this is an Astros team that if you're going to throw a righty at them that endeavors to throw hard, that's who they want to face. They've hit right-handers well all season. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause here, John Gray's expected ERA for the season is 3.84, so you could argue he's been a little unlucky. Still, though, you look at what Verlander's done. He already dominated Texas once this season. This is a lineup that doesn't figure to hit him well. I'm not seeing any reason to not back BC here. That's at BC in Houston on Twitter if you want to follow him. He is on the Astros -1.5. I will go ahead and join him there at -115. Moving on to the next game, we've got 9-7-5 Minnesota Twins on the road, continuing their series against the Kansas City Royals. This is a sneaky good pitching matchup. You got Joe Ryan on the mound for Minnesota, 4-2 with a 2.39 ERA. He'll be taking on Brad Keller, 1-3 with a 2.89 ERA. Twins, pretty small favorite here, -140 on the road. Kansas City +130, over under 7.5, juiced a bit to the under as I'd expect. Look, I think Joe Ryan was my preseason Rookie of the Year pick in the American League. I got him at 17-1. I don't think you can get odds anywhere near that now, and that's because he's pitched really well. That 2.39 ERA looks pretty real. If you look at his expected ERA on Baseball Savant, it's right around 3. I think he's had one rough start so far this year. It was at home against Houston. That's what Houston does against right-handed pitching. There's no surprise that he had a tough spot there, and I like the way he bounced back. He threw 6 innings, only allowing 1 against Cleveland his last time out. This is his first time facing a team twice, and that doesn't always go well for folks. But Kansas City's not exactly, a terribly strong lineup, and, Joe Ryan looks to be for real. His whip on the season is under 1. These are prime Kershaw type numbers when you're looking at stuff like that. Obviously we're still pretty early in the season. Flip side, Brad Keller, his numbers look pretty real as well. The underlying numbers on him, his expected ERA is in line with what he's done. I think he's the real deal, and I think Kansas City's expected this from him for a few years. He's faced Minnesota a ton in his career. 50 innings of work, ERA around 3.2. So it's a split he's pitched well. It's a team he's pitched well against. And, Minnesota's the better of these two offenses for sure, but they haven't been quite as good against righties as they have against lefties. Minnesota's also had the much better bullpen over the last month. Full game, I think Minnesota's a favorite, makes sense. Probably not going to get involved there. First 5 innings, though, I don't see why these two starters won't hold things down. I would have expected to see a 3.5 on that total. I'm seeing a 4. So I will be on first 5 innings under 4 between Minnesota and Kansas City in that one. Next game, 9-7-7 Oakland Athletics on the road at 9-7-8 Anaheim Angels, who notably still do not play in Los Angeles. Oakland's going to be a +127 underdog here. Anaheim is -137 at home. Over-under of 8. Oakland is throwing their trade bait pitcher, Frankie Montas, 2-4 with a 3.67 against Michael Lorenzen for Anaheim, 4-2 with a 3.57. Montas is a guy who he's been really steady and reliable for them. He'll almost certainly be traded. I would love to see the Dodgers go out and acquire him at the right price. He faced Anaheim earlier in his last start, actually. 6 innings pitched, 2 earned runs. He's faced them quite a bit. He's 4-2 with a 2.36 and 68 innings of work. That's a pretty significant sample, and he's pitched really well against them every time. I will say he's got an ERA over 5 away from Oakland this year. That gives me a little bit of concern, but Baseball Savant loves him. His expected ERA on the season, 2.92. That's one of the best in the game. The Angels do hit righties well. A little bit of strength on strength here. So don't really know what to make of that. On the other side, Michael Lorenzen, he pitched really well against Oakland in his last outing as well. He's been up and down this year. He's pitching roughly to what the advanced numbers say he should be so far. I don't have a ton of strong opinions on him. I think Montas is probably the better of the two arms, but not by a super significant margin. And obviously, I think you give Anaheim advantages everywhere else. They're clearly the better of these two teams. So, Angels as a moderate favorite makes sense to me. Don't really have any thoughts on the total. Pretty much just a stay away here. I just don't find that game particularly interesting. Next one on the board, our only interleague game of the day. the Cincinnati Reds continue their series in Toronto against the Toronto Blue Jays. That's going to be 9-7-9, 9-8-0. Reds sending Hunter Green back out to the mound. He's having a roller coaster of a rookie year. He's 1-6 with a 6.21 ERA. He'll be taking on Alek Manoah, 4-1 with a 1.71 for Manoah. Blue Jays, understandably a massive favorite here, -250. Reds catching +225, over/under of 8 runs. If there was ever to be a public underdog, I could see Cincinnati being that today because of Hunter Green's famous fastball, the fact that he threw into the 8th inning in what became a no-hitter for Cincinnati that they lost his last time out. I'm concerned about him here. We've seen his velocity fluctuate a bit this year. He'll have games where randomly he's throwing 95, 97 as opposed to 100 to 102. And he made 118 pitches this last outing. That's by far the most he's made in the big leagues. He's only pitched 100. He's only thrown 100 pitches one other time in his career. So I have concerns about him. He's taken on an offense that's absolutely electric, won't be intimidated by his fastball in Toronto. He could be in a bit of trouble today at Rogers Center. Alek Manoah for Toronto he's been phenomenal. I mean, he's thrown 6 or more innings in all but one start. Not very many guys doing things like that anymore. He's also made almost all of his starts against top half MLB lineups. This is a soft landing spot for him against a Cincinnati team that isn't really hitting anyone well. If he's up for it, I have a little bit of concern about him. He's a guy who I think pitches a little bit better when he gets to take on the Astros, or the Red Sox, or the Yankees. I don't know if he'll really be up for this start. He's really young, so obviously the Jays are a huge favorite. They should be. I think they'll win the game, but with a couple young pitchers on the mound like this, there's a little too much variance for me to want to get involved. The next and final game on the board is actually a day game. It's going to be game 1 between the Mets and the Rockies. This is a 3:10 Eastern time first pitch. That'll be Carlos Carrasco on the mound for the Mets, 3-1 with a 3.73 ERA on the year. He'll be taking on German Marquez for Colorado, who is 1-3 with a 6.16 ERA this season. Carrasco and the Mets, a small favorite, -120. Rockies are going to be +113. Over/under of 10. Like I talked about in the night game, that total feels really low for Coors. It's going to be blustery. Temperatures around 30 degrees. It's been snowing a ton. I think that could suppress offense a little bit, so I wouldn't just bet the over there automatically. Look, I think it's hard to predict what you're going to get from Carrasco start to start. Sometimes he looked great. Other times he doesn't look particularly good. Colorado could prove a tough place for him to pitch. It's not a place where he has a ton of experience. But look, I mean, it's not rocket science that the Mets are the much better team. Colorado's had a miserable homestand, especially from a bullpen perspective. They've been really getting knocked around here at home. And German Marquez has not had it this year. He pitched well in the opener against the Dodgers, but since then, 3 or more earned runs in all 6 of his starts, 4 or more earned runs in 4 of his 6 starts since then. He's allowing way too much hard contact. He's started throwing his slider a lot more this year, his fastball a lot less. I would suggest that he reverts back to what he was doing before, because that's not working. Teams are hitting him really hard. And the Mets have a massive bullpen advantage, 5th versus 22nd. The Mets have a massive advantage in how they hit righties. The Mets are also 5th in the league in that category. I'm not seeing any reason to not bet the Mets here. I think they should be more like a -160 favorite. I get that Colorado's a weird place to play. Wonky stuff happens there. Carrasco could blow up, but I don't see why Marquez isn't going to blow up too. I like the Mets -123. I think that line is a bit of a steal. I don't think it makes sense for it to be that low. So go ahead and give me the Mets on the money line. That'll do it for today as far as the bets that we've got on the board. I will go ahead and run through those one more time. We've got 9 total plays today, so a lot of action for me, and 10 actually, because I'm going to be backing BC and Houston on his Astros run line play. He also sent in one more that I want to share with you all. He likes the under in the Giants and Padres game, under 7. I said when I was going through that handicap that I think that game probably closes 6.5. So I endorse that one as well. I'm not going to be playing it, but I endorse that one. I do think that game stays under. Quick run through on the bets I like here. Diamondbacks, first 5 innings, plus 125 at the Cubs. Dodgers, money line, plus 112 at the Phillies. Cardinals, minus 133 at Pittsburgh. Cardinals, team total over 4.5. Brewers laying 1.5 on the run line. I got that at even money against the Nationals today. Red Sox, team total over 4.5 to crush Chris Flexen. Rays, first 5 innings, minus 125, backing Jeffrey Springs against the O's. Twins, Royals, great pitching matchup. First 5 innings, under 4. Mets in game 1 at 3 p.m. Eastern, minus 123 on the money line. And the Astros, minus 1.5 on the run line, backing Verlander, minus 120. Again, my name is Dalton. I am on Twitter at Dalton J. Brown. Feel free to come yell at me when some of these picks lose. I hope they win. I can't promise you anything, but I can promise you I've put the work in. So hoping for the best today. Like I said, my best bets so far this season are 19 and 12 at SportsMap Elite. You can get mine and everybody else's work there for just $19.99 a month. It's well worth the investment. The team's been winning a lot of money. Would love to have you join. Would love to have you come yell at me on Twitter. Let's have some fun. Looking forward to the games today, and appreciate you joining. Have a good one.